Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 521 on Tuesday, the 18th of April, 2023. Hello, I'm Alan, and there's no Andrew here today. He's still sick as a parrot, like we both were last week. And actually, that means that I have completely forgotten to write any menu items. So we're going to skip that bit rather than pause or write them and come back again. And we're going to head straight into some follow-up. If there's one thing the UK government is great at the minute, it is populist politics and making a big hurrah and trying to find some quick wins. And one of the ones that they're on about right at the minute, or one thing they've done recently, is to scrap all new smart motorways. And that's pretty much the wording on the gov.uk release about this. So smart motorways, of course, are where there is variable speed limits, the ability to all lane running, for example, to at peak times, so that they can fit as many cars, as much traffic flowing as smoothly as possible through those areas at peak periods. It's been decided that we're not going to do that anymore because it is dangerous, which is curious for a number of reasons. Like people could break down and get trapped and all this kind of thing, which makes me wonder how people manage on dual carriageways in the rest of the country with a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that it's not really down to drivers not necessarily paying attention when they're on the roads. There've been other studies. I don't have them to hand, but there have been other studies that show that actually those areas of smart motorways, the accident rate is much lower given the volume of traffic going through them. So this is a strange one, but it's a way of saving money as much as anything else. The government release has many quotes from the Prime Minister and from the Transport Secretary, and both of them just makes them sound like they're completely out of touch with actually, driving cars, which is quite possible in terms of both the Prime Minister and the Transport Secretary. Yes, we'll probably follow up again on this. I'm sure there'll be follow on when Andrew's here, and we'll go into that in more detail. As always, links to all the stories if you want to read a bit more than the quick summary I'm going to give today will be in the show notes. Anyway, we'll move on from that into some new news. And of course, last week, would you believe it, we missed the new car registration figures. The 1 week we didn't manage to cover the news, and it was an SMMT figures week. So let's cover that one very quickly. You probably all know all the headlines, but in March, new car registrations rose 16.2%, which is 18.2%. I can't read this morning. And that was important because March is generally one of the larger months for registrations, it being a new plate month, and large fleets have been updating their vehicles at last. Supply and delivery time and all that kind of stuff has really hit the large fleet folk for the last couple of years. So they've finally been able to actually update. Battery electric vehicles, massive uptake year on year. It's up 18.6%. 46,626 were registered in March 2023, and that gives them a market share of 16.2%. To give you an idea, at the other end of the scale, diesel, 3.8%. Let's do the top 10s, the best registered. Number 10, Ford Fiesta, 4,792. So the numbers, this one's significantly higher. Numbers for March, significantly higher than they were for February. Number 9, Toyota Yaris Cross, 5,214. Number 8, the Mini. 7, the Vauxhall Corsa. 6, the Ford Puma. 5th, the Hyundai Tucson, 5,680. 4th, it's Platform Buddy, the Kia Sportage. Just 208 registrations ahead of it. Number 3, the Nissan Qashqai, 6,755, a big jump between 4th and 3rd there. Number 2, the Nissan Juke, 7,532. And number 1, the Tesla Model Y, 8,123. That even in year to date, that sort of jumbled stuff up a bit, and then it goes Qashqai, Juke, Corsa, and Model Y at the top. I think one of the things to note here is the people saying, "Oh, look at it, it's all SUVs, it's all SUVs, it's all SUVs," and it is. They're right, it is. But that's what people who buy cars want to buy, not what... and people who buy cars new or register them for fleets new, that's what they buy, which is different from what us enthusiasts tend to choose. I've got the Andrew very kindly from his deathbed did me the spreadsheet of doom, and there's not a lot of doom really. Bath is down 70%. I think they're obviously waiting for the new electric 500e base models to come through. Fiat down 17%, Jaguar down 16%, Lexus down 27%, Renault down 29%, and Tesla, despite the success of the Model Y, down 19% compared to last year. Everyone else is up and within the thresholds. I'm not going to go through all of them because there are like 20 or 30 coloured in green here. Let's pick out a couple of key ones. Interesting to see Jeep up 44%, 462. Land Rover up 64%. Subaru up 130, so from 193 cars up to 445. So that's quite an impressive leap. Mini is up 46%, Nissan up 66%. As you noticed, a particularly good month for Nissan. The MG Award, who themselves are up 31%, goes to Cupra, up 190%, almost 3,000 vehicles registered in March 2023. So yes, that's quite hopeful looking. I still think that there's a certain amount of alignment going on here. I mean, that was 287,825 vehicles registered in total. In 2019, the number was up at about 450,000, maybe a little bit higher. And that's down from a peak of about 550,000 in 2017. So we're definitely not back at pre-pandemic levels. But, you know, better than it has been for the last, certainly much better than it has been for the last 3 years. Let's move on. The third story today, and I think this is the only second one which would have Andrew having a conniption fit. And quite frankly, did I have a conniption fit? No, I didn't. I went, oh, really? What a surprise. Story linked is in The Guardian, but the story was absolutely everywhere, and it's that Tesla workers shared intimate car camera images, ex-employees allege, with massive invasions of privacy, people being able to see and share videos that were recorded and uploaded by various Teslas over the years, being able to see people, you know, and sharing around clips around the office of people, you know, people with people doing, how do I word this in a way that's not going to get a thing? Basically, people doing what people do in cars when it isn't just driving. As well as some of the things they were carrying in their cars and some of the places they went and all these kind of things. I mean, gee whiz. I mean, I challenges where the data's held, and if it was all in the US or if it was elsewhere. But this is a worrying thing, and yeah, oh wow. I mean, my day job related head is sort of exploding at the number of sort of regulatory breaches that are going on in this. If you're going to take this kind of information, you have to have the right processes, the right screening, the right separations to make sure that this kind of thing, to make sure that the data remains private. You can't have videos, even the ability to share the videos around the place and stuff like that just should not be happening. I hope that a regulator is going to investigate. It may be, if stuff's in California, I mean, we don't know where these videos are from. So if they're all from in the US, then there's a different set of rules than from if they're in Europe, in which case, which is different nowadays from being in the UK, which is different from being elsewhere. California has rules very similar to GDPR. So, yeah, I imagine that there will be lawyers in California, sharpening up their legal pencils, and getting to work on this one. So I'm sure this is going to roll on and on. The Tesla video one. I mean, it's possibly one just as well. Andrew's not here for that one. The third story, which would send him into the stratosphere, is the news that Ford's Blue Cruise self-driving technology has been approved for British motorways. So Blue Cruise is level 2 if you're following the SAE levels of automation. So it is hands off. You're meant to be paying attention, but it is hands off. Now, what does that mean you can do? It means you can play on your phone. According to Matt Farris had this. This system has been out in the US for quite a long time, a couple of years anyway. Matt Farrer of the Smoking Tire, he has I think still has a Mustang Mach-E with the Blue Cruise. And he says the only real reason you'd want to use Blue Cruise is, or there's any advantage to using Blue Cruise, is so that you can play with your phone. That basically is it. And even then, it's not an eyes off system, so you shouldn't even be doing that. It just enables you to rest your hands on your knees as much as anything else. It is GPS limited, geofenced, that's the word I'm looking for. It is geofenced about 2,500 miles of, 2,300 miles of English, Scottish and Welsh motorways. But yeah, that's coming. That's going to be allowed. It's a £50 from memory. It's a £50 a month subscription, on top of the price of the car. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I've heard good things about Blue Cruise. Generally, it is a well-behaved system. It works in the way that you would expect it to work within those areas. But really, what does it give you? As I say, it gives you legally the ability to rest your hands on your knees, but still be paying attention to the road. You shouldn't be being distracted by mobile devices, anything like that. But we'll see, because there will be abuses. Hopefully not. And it all runs just fine. Yes, the worry is always the transition time, of course. Something's about to go wrong. What do I do? Can I touch the steering wheel, whatever? That's the bit that's always tricky in there. But we know about that. We've talked about that many times over the years. Less contentious news for a little while now. Caterham is going to relocate, and the really good news about this, well, there's two bits of good news. So the idea is it's relocating in order to increase its manufacturing capacity by up to about 50%. They're going to be consolidating all their different branches. So engineering, motorsport, and all the commercial side will all be in the one place, which, by the way, is a fantastically powerful thing for an organization to be able to do. But they're not moving far. So they're still going to be in Dartford. The new 54,000 square foot facility will be in a new industrial estate, industrial park development called Dartford X. And it's actually being developed by Caterham's owners, who are a Japanese company called VT Holdings. They own a number of dealer groups as well. What's really good about this is, of course, they're not moving very fast, so they can retain all the same workers. So this is a good thing all around. Hopefully hire more as well. But it's not like one of these times where kit car companies decide they're going to move from Leicestershire to South Africa or somewhere. No, this is basically just down the road, but into brand new purpose-built facilities. So that should be good. By the way, they've been in Kennet Road in Dartford since 1987. Before that, they were in Caterham in Surrey from when they were founded in 1973. So they've not moved particularly far, and in this case, they're really not moving far at all. Another one. Okay, so this one may be slightly contentious. There's a article in the Register, and there's a couple of there's an article in the Register, and we'll link to Ken's blog as well. And it's all about CAN injection. So about how vehicles communicate, different parts of the vehicles communicate using an internal network called a CAN bus, and it's what it saves us having our cars mostly being full of wires and cables these days. There's a couple of one of the challenges of that is that sometimes the network goes very close to the edge of the vehicle, and by removing a couple of bits which are relatively easy to remove, it's possible for bad people and naughty people to plug into that network and then sort of pretend to be a module or other that's on the network, meaning that you can bypass systems, start cars, steal cars. Happened to another friend of the show, Ian Tabor, and really Ken Tyndall, and he's been on and investigated how that happens on Toyotas. In the case of Ian's RAV4, then people broke in essentially by removing the headlamp or by unplugging the headlamp, and managed to break in and get it that way. So there's quite a lot's come out about this. Toyota know about it. They've been through all the appropriate channels before releasing this one. So there's articles in the Register. There's a longer article with some more background on Ken's blog, and we'll link to both of those in, as always, the show notes. There's other stories that have come up. We're going to cover those next week. When Andrew's here as well, because even the interesting stories are a little bit drier when there's just one of us covering them. So that means that we've reached a Guilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel that Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, and some of you do so, thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues. We're going to skip over new car news because there is some interesting stuff there, but I want to discuss it with Andrew. So stuff like the MG Cyberster, we'll discuss next week. But let's have a little bit of a look at saying is this week's lunchtime read, and it's more of a lunchtime look, really, and it's from Design News, and it's the virtual tour of the Lamborghini Museum. Santa Agata is hard to get to for some of us, so this takes us around some of the vehicles that are the Lamborghini Museum, and it's quite a long, decent slideshow showing some of the highlights. So that'll keep you occupied for 4 or 5 minutes whenever you're bored and having your pasty and your can of Coke at lunchtime or whatever. List of the week is a monster. It actually makes up for the lunchtime look being a little bit on the short side. List of the week's from Autocar, and it's the forgotten cars of the 1980s. It does have something of an American flavor to it. No you in that. So apologies on Autocar's behalf. Lots of stuff in here. Some of it is, well, to me it's not that obscure, but I'm me. And other stuff is quite obscure. I mean, there's 41 items, so I feel okay to sort of mention that I don't find the Suzuki SJ410 particularly forgotten because we had one. D145 ESL, it's well off the road by now. But we actually had one. Another car that's on the list that we touched on, which I think is probably more forgotten than the SJ410, is the Chevrolet Beretta. The article here covers the Beretta GTU, which is the 2.8-litre V6 version, putting out a whopping 130 brake horsepower and capable of reaching 60 miles an hour in 9.2 seconds, which sounds incredibly slow these days. And it was the performance version. The version that I remember was the Alamo rental car version, in Florida in about 1988, and trust me, it had nowhere near that sort of eye-watering power. The thing I remember most about it was that the seatbelt buckles got so incredibly hot you couldn't actually touch them for the first 5 or 10 minutes of any journey. You had to sit there and wave them around so that everything would cool off. But yeah, I think it's quite a cool looking car, to be honest. Got hidden door handles and the doors and everything. So yes, but obviously late 80s General Motors North America product. So yes, probably a bit rubbishy really. There's lots of other cool stuff in there. I'll let you click through them and see. They're not all from the 1980s. There was one. There's that one there. Oh, that one's 1984. Okay, they're not all from the 1980s. There were a couple that were from the late 1970s. I noticed, but hey, they went to the bother of writing the list. I should do more than just sit here and critique it. And that brings us hopping and skipping to the and finally this week. And what's happening and finally this week is that Major Gavin Big Surname, has uncovered a top news story in that a man buys a Hot Wheels toy but fails to post a photo on social media. If you go to Petra, he's posted it on Petroblog. It is. I'm a little bit worried that his name is Alan. I'm a little bit upset by that. I was pointed out that wasn't the friend's real identity, so I feel a little bit. I feel like I've been let off the hook with that one, thankfully. So yeah, do have a look. As ever, all the stuff on Petroblog is great. And Gav's been doing some videos about trying to restore, refurbish, rebuild his Citroen AX GT in his own inimitable style, which I find just great to be able to just sit there and watch and absorb and chill out too. So yes. So that rounds up. It's a short one this week. I'm sorry, we'll make up for it over the next couple of weeks, and apologies again for last week's sort of minimal announcement. It was sort of one of those, will we make it, will we make it, will we make it, won't we make it? No, there's no way, we're just going to croak through this. And it would just have been thorough misery for everyone. So thank you for that. I mean, the number of times we've had to do that in the past 6-7 years is practically negligible. So tiny micro percentage. But yes, thank you. Apologies for skipping a week, and the confusion it caused some of you. Do not adjust your podcast, your podcast subscriptions. It was us at our end skipping one. However, don't forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback. Share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Obviously, the best ways to get in touch with both of us. To get in touch with me, it's best to use Twitter, sometimes Mastodon, but on both cases, I'm at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. To get in touch with Andrew, search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter or on Mastodon. He uses the same username on both, a bit like myself. We'll be back very soon. But until then, I've been Alan Bradley. He's been Andrew Close. And safe motoring.